Everyone all set? Call the Londonderry Planning Board meeting to order for February 8th, 2012. Just want to let everyone know that if we have to evacuate due to an emergency or whatever, this room has 2 exits. They're on the right-hand side of the room, is where the audience faces, front and back. And if we do need to evacuate, we ask you to proceed through the exit closest to you, go outside, and move away from the building. Don't come back into. Our fire officials have instructed all of us to do so. I'd like to ask everyone to please rise and pledge allegiance to the American flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Lynn, let's see, Lynn and Scott and Chris are traveling with their work, so they won't be here tonight. And I'll appoint Letha to vote for Lynn, and I'll vote Maria to vote for Chris. And Laura's not here yet. John's not here. Right now we have seven voting members. If Laura comes, we'll have 8 voting members. So our meeting's divided into 2 parts. The first part we do administrative board work, which is we get our business done. And the second part, this one we're going to hear a very short new plan, and we have public hearings, workshops, conceptual discussions for the latter part, that being for the second Wednesday of the month. We will proceed right to administrative board work, and the first thing we have on that is an extension request from Shelburne Plastic Site Plan Amendment. It's tax map 28, lot 18-6. They were requesting a 120-day extension of conditional site plan approval. That'll be to June 28, 2012. Do you have any details on that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, in your package, there's a letter dated the 7th of February from Michael O'Donnell from T.F. Moran's office, and I'll read the letter into the record. On behalf of our client, Shelburne Plastics, Inc., we respectfully request a 120-day extension on the conditional approval that was granted on November 2nd, 2011, to allow time to complete the conditions of approval. We appreciate your consideration of this matter. Michael O'Donnell, PE Project Manager. Our discussions with Mike is that, Mike, they just had a few last items that they were chasing after as far as signatures, and again, just to address the conditions of approval. Staff does not see any problem with granting of the extension.
Okay, and they assure that 120 days is what they need to get it done?
Forewarned them, told
Yes,
them,
we asked.
take what it takes. You know, ask for what it takes, so.
Okay, any questions from the board? I'll take a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second to grant the 120-day request to June 28th of 2012. Motion by Dana, second by Rick. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Abstentions, chair votes affirmative, and that request has been granted. Approval and signing of minutes, Woodmont RFP subcommittee minutes. These doesn't really need to be done. I got a note in the read file that Jay is going to take care of it. And I think at the time we only had, I think we're short 2 members for the subcommittee anyway.
Mr. Chairman, you have 3 members here tonight.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, Rick,
Rick is one of the
Ricky,
members,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, so it's up to the subcommittee, the 3 members, to approve the minutes, and I'll let them do the motion, the second, and everything for the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for January 10th. Woodmont RFP Subcommittee minutes for January 10th, 2012.
I'll second.
Harry seconded, so any discussion?
Nope.
Seeing none, all subcommittee members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And abstentions, so the subcommittee minutes are approved by the board.
Those were the 10th.
Yeah, you can do
So I'll
January
make
17th.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for, to approve the minutes for the Woodmont RFP Subcommittee interview minutes from January 17th, 2012.
I have a motion.
Second.
Second by Mary. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Abstentions? Okay. Subcommittee approves the minutes of the subcommittee meeting of this 10th and the 17th. My date's straight here. Okay, next item is regional impact determinations, and Mr. Steer amended site plan. I don't, Cynthia.
Mr. Chairman, I'll
How's
take
that?
that. Thank you. Members of the
Formality.
board, in your packet, you have a memorandum dated February 8th, 2012, and there's only one item to consider, and that's Mr. Steer, and staff recommends the project is not a development of regional impact, as it does not meet any of the regional impact guidelines suggested by Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. It's a change of use application.
Okay, any questions by the board? Seeing none, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion by Dana, second by Rick, that this, Mr. Steer is not a project of regional impact. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Abstentions show as affirmative. And it's not a project of regional impact. That's a formality we have to go through. Okay, next item, we have discussions with town staff. And John,
I
anything?
have nothing this evening.
Okay, Andre?
Yes, I just want to update the board on the, what's transpired since our last meeting on the, took place on January 30th, which is a special town meeting to consider the Woodmont Commons third-party consultant. As the board knows, it's selected Howard Stein Hudson and Associates to move forward with their proposal and be Londonderry's third-party consultant. The following day, we sent a letter to the representative of Woodmont Commons, Ari Pollack, requesting an escrow and a full amount of the contract. And I think was suggested by our legal counsel at the time, too, that if there, with the removal of Robinson Cole, their attorney from the team, obviously we were going to subtract that amount from the contract and reimburse them out of the escrow. And so, and if we were to receive that escrow by, I believe, by February 2nd, that we were commenced with a meeting on February 16th. We did not receive that escrow, but on Friday, February 3rd, we did, the applicant took it upon themselves to recalculate the cost estimate from Howard Stein Hudson to determine the amount to, that the completeness review would cost, minus Robinson Cole. So they presented a check, submitted a check in an amount of $11,520 to the town, which on Monday I responded indicating that I couldn't accept the check because the guidance that the planning board last gave me was to get an escrow and the full amount of the contract, and that that the board will have to decide whether or not to take anything less than the full amount of the contract. Since that time, Howard Stein had submitted a contract and a revised contract estimate based on a removal of Robinson Cole that reduced their overall fee from $139 down to $117. And a subsequent letter was sent to the applicant indicating that, one, I could not, on behalf of the board, accept anything less than a full amount, and that if the applicant wanted to pursue a decision for the board to take in less than the full amount, then obviously I would bring that to the board. Alternatively, I said in my letter that if we want to keep the process moving forward, attached is the revised cost estimate. It's has been revised down to 117 with the removal of Robinson Cole. And if we were to receive a check by today, at least I can get a determination from the board as to when the new date would be for the acceptance application determination.
Did you say 11,000 or 111,000?
117,000.
No, originally, did they send you a check for 11,000?
11,520. Yes.
They sent you a check for 11,520,
Correct.
saying that is how much they estimated,
The completeness review, the first part, the cost.
as opposed to 139,000?
Correct. Because task, it was broken down into tasks as per the RFP, is that each task, the completeness review task was broken out, and that with the removal of Robinson Cole, end up being that amount.
So they're
11.
saying that Robinson Cole was going to cost $127,000?
No.
They're just saying the
No, they're
completeness
saying-
part by whoever reviews it is 11,000. It must
They
have
wanted
come
to
in
portion.
sections, the estimate.
Oh,
Want to portion it out.
The whole thing, though, the review from the completeness to the end, based on the amount of time and manpower and all that would take in order to bring from completeness review all the way to the end is 117, without
not
Robinson Cole.
understanding. Thank you.
Yeah, but the completeness
I understand
portion
now.
was 11,520.
Making a down
Okay.
payment.
So my understanding from the board, at least the direction from the board, was that you wanted the total amount of the escrow in place, not a partial amount of the escrow in place. Is still the consensus of the
That
board.
was the direction.
I have a question. A moment ago, Andre, you said that, right before we spoke, you said that in your letter, you asked if you could get, in order to bring this information to us this evening, that they could send you a check in the full amount. Have you received that
I have not.
as of today?
I have not. The only thing I have that was submitted by the applicant is the check in amount of 11,520.
So that would be for the first task, and that is
Correct.
to, for completeness of the plan.
Correct.
I guess it probably kind of begs the question, if it's going to be piecemeal, we're at the whim of them sending the escrow each task, so it might not be a speedy process. Or
I beg to differ on this. The process was hiring a third-party reviewer. He has a price of, I guess, $117,000 now. They agreed to pay for it. When they pay for it, that's when he can start it. Whether he does it, in stages as he broke it out, that's fine. But as far as I'm concerned, it's $117,000. That's the terms they agreed to. We're not changing the terms. At least I'm not going to accept that. And you can hold the check or you can mail it back to them, but when you get the difference, you can start. Because, not chasing them or anybody else for the money, not imposing the burden on the taxpayers.
Yep, Maria?
And also, when we contracted with the third-party reviewer, I mean, we're obligated to pay them X amount of dollars to finish this whole task, right?
Exactly.
There wasn't a payment planned.
There wasn't a
offered
payment
us.
plan, so we can't do that to a third-party reviewer of now, letting them invest all their time and work, however they invest their time and work in whatever stages they do it, and now we're only secure for one task at a time, money-wise. I would have a problem with that as
And I
well.
think Mr. Pollock, can read and understood that when he left here. So that's,
That was
I
kind
just
of
wanna
my
make sure-
understanding, was that,
Okay.
No.
that was how.
that was
they
anybody that
accepted
speaks
it.
English is understanding and reads English is understanding. So they can do what they want, but
Okay.
my recommendation would be, I wouldn't do a thing until the balance of the money comes.
Okay.
When I go to Market Basket and I buy a can of peas and it says 40 cents on it and I get 25 cents, I don't get the can of peas, even though, it's more than half. That's just the way it is. It works at Market Basket, works at here too.
And they indicated, Mr. Kettenbach and both, their attorney, Mr. Pollock, indicated that, they're going to, no strings attached. They're going to pay
Yeah.
for the third party,
Yeah, so-
period. That was
Okay.
at least the agreement that the verbal agreement we had here, so.
The
Yes,
one,
it's-
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The one danger another danger I see in getting it per phase is the fact that if you come to a point where you accept the application as complete, 65-day clock starts. Now you're waiting for them to pay the remainder so the review can continue, and that just won't work.
Laura?
I just don't think we meet often enough to be on top of piecemeal, in
yeah.
installment payments. But also, I wondered if the check was not received by last Thursday, where does that leave us on the Thursday meeting next week?
So
There is none.
it-
There is
it
none.
was-
Was
it would be canceled.
I remember hearing that we weren't going to be dealing with this at that meeting, but I didn't hear that the whole
Yeah.
meeting was canceled.
Yeah, because that meeting was predicated on them having the
10 days.
escrow check to us, I think it was by the 2nd of February. 2nd February came and went, and nothing had come in. Now, instead of the $117 and some odd $1,000 for escrow, they sent us $11,000. So I think the board is in agreement that, we don't move until we have the $117,000 escrow in hand. Then we can set a date for the hearing for completeness.
Can we at this point say that if we're gonna, since we have scheduled meetings next month, would it be reasonable for us to say that should we receive the check by X date, that we can bring, that we can address this on one of our meetings next month, so that we at least keep it moving forward on our end, and it puts the burden back on them to have the check in our hands by a specific time, if they want to move forward on this, on a tight schedule?
Well,
I think it's reasonable, but
Well, my view of this, I'm not going to start by, bidding against myself, okay? They know what the price is. They can either pay or not pay, I wouldn't engage in renegotiating things with them.
Oh, I'm not suggesting that.
No,
If
but-
that's what it sounded like, I didn't mean to say that at all.
Yeah, but I wouldn't even consider renegotiating, rescheduling things. The deal's the deal.
I know, I think the point, though, is, Tom, if the check comes in today or tomorrow, or the next day, then Andre would put it on the next agenda. I think you're just saying, we wouldn't hold a special meeting in case they bring the check in tomorrow or the next day. We would simply, it would go on the next agenda, and that's when we would
Okay.
bring it up again.
I guess that's what
Yeah,
I
that's
wanted to
fine.
make sure was gonna
I would agree
happen,
with
just that we
that.
don't have to wait till we meet again to set it up again, you know what I
Right.
mean?
That's fine.
And I
At
think,
this point, my feeling is that whether the check comes in tomorrow or next week, it has to be 10 days before the next meeting, and at this point, it would be our next scheduled meeting. They're the ones that have delayed it, and we've bent over backwards trying to move this thing along, and now the ball's in their court. I don't believe we should have any more special meetings for it.
I wasn't suggesting a special meeting.
And might I add too that,
to the board, and I'll get to you, Cynthia.
and might I add too that it's common courtesy to our third-party reviewer as well, to give them ample time at this point, since,
Well, I think the citizens of town who want to attend the hearings that we have on it, so. Fairness to them. Cynthia had her hand up, I'll do her first.
I was just going to add that if you retable it to the first meeting in March, which is March 7th, then we don't necessarily need to re-notify everybody. But if it's just ending here because they did not meet their obligation, then there would also be the re-notification of abutters and all of those requirements too, so.
Yeah, because basically we continued it to the
Yes.
16th. We could continue it to,
You
let's say,
could
our
continue it
next meeting date,
to March 7th.
March 7th.
And that would be my suggestion, because it would be ridiculous to come in on the 16th just to table it to the 7th.
Right,
Yeah, no,
exactly.
no,
We don't need to, and we don't have to
no.
meet
Right,
then to
it's
do
not.
it. but-
Yeah, the only other suggestion I would make, then, if we're tabling it, if the board's considering tabling to the
No, no,
7th,
not-
then it
Or
would.
we could continue it to the
Or
7th.
continue to the 7th, then the check has to be in by the 23rd in order to give our consultant a full 10 working days, as was agreed upon before.
Yes,
That's right.
yes.
I just don't want to get the check on the 1st and then say, well, the 7th here. And the consultant is expected to have the work done, so.
Well, I think there's a real practical problem, the way this is starting, by them, because I'm sort of in a similar type of business, and if I'm expecting to get $117,000, and that was the expectation, and then all of a sudden it's 11,000, what I'm gonna get, I'm gonna be real skeptical if I'm gonna get paid. And you know what? In this business, in that business, I'm sure people that get paid get served first. So if they're expecting speed, then on the consultant's part, they ought to understand that, and I'm sure they do. So I don't think this was a mistake on their part, And I think this is some sort of warning shot for them. So here's the warning shot back. No money, it isn't fully paid because it's our name on the contract. If it isn't fully paid, hey, no contract.
Agreed. I just wanted to make sure, I wanted, bring this to the board because that was something in response to my letter that went out, and two, I just want to make sure my response was consistent with the board's feeling, and that was, you want to have full escrow in place before you proceed. And so I'll relay that message.
What's our option? If we continue it, and we don't get, the escrow is not deposited in full in time to allow the consultant sufficient time, can we just continue it to the next meeting, or, I mean, what are our options?
We could continue it as long as we want to continue it.
You know, 'cause I mean, I agree with
At some point, we'll have to call a halt to it, but.
you know, our consultant needs time to review this.
Yeah, and that's why I said that if we are continuing this meeting, that public acceptance meeting till March 7th, which is our first meeting in March, we have to have the check-in by the 23rd, which will allow the full 10 working days for them that we were going to give them before, had they submitted a check by February 2nd to do in order to get it in by February 16th. So I guess that was holding the same timeline. So as long as those things happened, then we're good. If there's an interruption, meaning that the check is received on the 24th or the 25th, then
We'll just
Can't do
have to
anything.
continue it again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, Mr. Chairman, do you entertain a motion to continue this to March 7th?
Predicated upon the escrow, full escrow being in the town hands by the 23rd of February, 5 PM is the deadline.
Second.
Does
Motion
the
by-
check,
Yeah.
does the check have to clear by then, or does it just has to be in your possession?
well, right now, yes, it's the board's call on that one. I
Good
hadn't thought
point.
about that one.
Personally, I would like to see the check here by, like, Friday of this week, or Monday of next week at the latest, so that you do have time for it to clear. Because I just think this is baloney, that this is, they're playing a game here, and I don't believe we should be playing this game. They asked us to do something, and we've followed through on doing that, and in good faith, we've interviewed people, and we have something that's, you know, a good company that we're ready to back, and, you know, I'm sorry they have a problem with it, but we're professionals, or they're professionals. You know, it's ridiculous to believe that anybody who has done any kind of business in Boston is not gonna have contact with other people in the same type of business. So, you know, I
And a
simply
company that
believe
may
we-
have foregone other work to do this job, but now may be out of that, too.
Exactly. So I believe that I don't think we can say till the 23rd. I believe, you know, we're at the 8th now. You know,
Typically, how long does it take for a check to clear?
well, it
Wanna
depends
give
on
it
your
5 days
bank, but I would say 5 business days is a fair
Do
amount.
we want to move then to the 15th?
About,
So
I
I
would
would
say
say
the
the
Or the
15th
18th,
is
or
the
the
latest
18th?
they want to do.
Is that the 18th or 17th?
You're looking
how
at
we
business
amend the
days.
motion so that
It's next Friday.
We can just
the
change
escrow
motion
check,
to-
the escrow check is received and cleared by the 23rd.
I'm sorry, but since they aren't gonna have control over that aspect of it, could we just get it here in a sufficient amount of time to reasonably expect it would
They can make
would
it
clear?
certified funds.
Or, you know, just say the
Okay,
7th.
The 17th, let's just
17th.
say next Friday, the 17th, the check needs to be here for us to
Consider.
consider this on the 7th. Because once the check is received and cleared, Andre, you're authorized to enter into a contract with the third-party consultant, isn't that correct?
Yeah, at least I can have them go. Right now, we're working out the language of the contract, so those things can happen concurrently. So when we get the check, we can say, you have 10 days, so we're not using that 10 days in order to review the contract, so,
Right, but you don't have to come back to us with the contract.
no,
You're-
no, that goes to Dave after
Okay.
that, yeah.
Yeah, he's the executor of that.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so I understand the motion that we have is to continue the completeness hearing for Woodmont to the 7th of March, 7 PM. Contingent upon receiving the check by the 17th of February, 5 PM deadline,
In the full amount.
in the full amount.
Second.
Okay, Rick had seconded that.
Oh, yeah.
So, motion by Dana, second by Rick. Any further discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Abstentions, shows affirmative. And the completeness hearing for Woodmont is continued contingently to the 7th of March at 7 PM.
And this is their only notification,
This is their
right?
only notification, as with site plans and subdivisions.
And the other issue, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the board, but I just wanted to bring up, I received a email from David Priest indicating that DOT has recently, the national DOT, not the New Hampshire DOT, recently announced that $500 million is available through the Tiger 4 grant. As you remember, Tiger 3 just came out this past last September. This is another Tiger fund available through the Tiger 4 grant program. Notice of funding availability will be found at the link provided, and I believe that the deadline for pre-application, which this indicates the town's interest in submitting an application, is due by February 20th, and the deadline for the final application is March 19th. So.
So apply.
Well, we have for the first 3, so we'll make it a clear 4.
Yeah, let us know what we need
Good
to
luck.
do to help, you know.
Yeah, and I actually, I just want to make sure that we do everything we can to submit an application that hopefully will be funded. It's tough because every year they put out a X amount. Say if they're putting out $500 million for the grant, usually they get like 1.4 or $2 billion worth of requests.
Mhm.
I mean, it's very competitive. I mean, you're going against state and project against project, and there's a lot of great projects out there. So they usually get way more requests than they have money.
You're speaking Pettingill Road, right?
That's what I
Correct.
was thinking, is that what you're
Yeah.
putting this
That's our
on?
best option. I mean, that's something that at least we have an engineered plans, we have everything ready to go
Right.
for that project, as opposed to something that we don't have, we're not.
And we also have connection now, so perhaps
I
that
hope
will
so.
make a difference.
We use every one of them, and
Right.
hopefully it will result in a project being funded, so,
Good luck.
thanks.
Great.
And that's all I have for now.
Anything, Cynthia?
No, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, I'm all set, thank you.
Board? School district
Yeah.
meeting on the 10th of February, 7 PM. I beat you, Mary.
Yes, you did.
Anything to add to it?
No, just be there and, you know, there's babysitting if you have children, so.
Okay, now we'll proceed to new plans. We have Mr. Steer amended site plan. This is Buttrick Ventures LLC, the owner, tax map 6, lot 30. This is an application acceptance and a public hearing for proposed change of use from retail to restaurant in Unit B at number 27 Buttrick Road. This is zone commercial 1 in the Route 102 Performance Overlay District. And Eric, we haven't seen you in a while. Good.
Eric Mitchell here representing us.
Excuse me, Art, you need to accept it first.
Oh, okay. Okay, we need to accept it as complete first. This is a formality. Once we accept it as complete, then we can start the public hearing on it, and there's a 65-day timeframe in which we have to render a decision.
Okay, Mr. Chairman and the board, this application is for a change of use of a previously approved, which was June 2007, site plan for the subject parcel. All the site improvements have been constructed in accordance with the June 2007 plan, including buildings, drainage, parking lots, landscaping, and lighting. This change of use entails converting 2,400 square feet of the previously approved retail space, which will take part in the building closest to Buttrick Road, from retail to a 59-seat restaurant. It'll include interior renovations to the building, and the existing septic system will be upgraded, and I believe that that septic plan has been approved by the state. There are no outstanding checklist items, and staff recommends the application be accepted as complete.
Okay, need a
So
motion.
moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Dana, second by Rick for completeness. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Abstentions, and the application is complete, and we can proceed. And welcome again, Eric.
Thank you. My name is Eric Mitchell. I'm here to represent the owners of the property, Buttrick Ventures LLC, and Chris George is also here. We refer to this project as Mr. Steer. because Building A, which houses the Mr. Steer facility, was completed and occupied since the site plan was approved. The second building, which we call Building A, is a 6,000 square foot retail building, and that's what it was approved for. The problem that Chris has had in getting tenants, he had hoped to get tenants that were going to be other specialty type shops that would go along with what he had, whether it was a bakery shop, a fish market, things like that. But in the last 4 years, he's been unable to rent that successfully to some of those types of ventures. There is a beer emporium in part of the building. But what he'd like to do is take part of the vacant building, 2,400 square feet, and put a restaurant bar in there that would have 59 seats in it. It would cater to more of the sports enthusiasts, so that there would be perhaps more use on weekends and later on in the evening as opposed to all day long. They do serve lunch and dinner, but it's expected the lunch crowd would be less than what you would have for the dinner crowd. So that was specifically the changes use is from a general retail to a restaurant slash bar. We've also looked at the site relative to the parking requirements. The parking requirements that were met and constructed were for just retail for the entire site. Now that we propose to take 2,400 square feet of the retail and have that become a restaurant, it puts it in a different classification. The number of seats that would be required, number of spaces, parking spaces, would be 1 per every 3 seats, which we estimate at 59, not estimate, it's 59, say 60. That would need 20 spaces and additional 1 per employee per given shift, and that would be 5. So we need 25 spaces for the restaurant based on your current town code. In addition to that, the amount of space that we would need for the remaining retail would be 44 spaces, so 45, excuse me. So if you add those together, that's 70 required. And right now, on site, we have 57. So based on your regulation and the specific parking required per use, we would be over that requirement. However, we also looked at the ITE parking generation manual for all uses, and specifically the type of retail use that we are looking at is probably closer to 1.2 to 2.5 spaces required per 1,000 square feet. And this is all in a letter that we had submitted to the board. Using 2.2 for the 9,000 square feet that remains is roughly 20 spaces required. In looking at the restaurant or bar, which is more of a quick turnover type of facility, we'd have 13.3 spaces according to the generation manual per 1,000 square feet, or 32. Add those together, that's 52. So that type of review, the 52 spaces required, is under the 57 that we proposed. We are looking at this from the standpoint that there is going to be some joint use of the parking, and also that the parking itself is going to be used at different times of the day and different times during the week. So it's the intention that although we are less than what the town requires specifically, we believe that there is enough parking on site to be shared for all the uses that are there. There is relief within your ordinance that if there is shared parking, and it's reasonable and makes sense, that you can have less than what the requirement would be if you had every use as a singular type of requirement. We also looked at the trip generation for traffic. Although the numbers do increase with a restaurant facility as opposed to retail, the number of trips coming in and out of the site do not warrant any type of intersection improvements, whether that's certainly not streetlight or acceleration, de-acceleration lanes or that. So basically the change in use, which doesn't affect the exterior of the site as it's constructed now, does come down to the amount of parking that's provided. And I think that based on what we've shown for the ITE parking generation manual requirements, and that this is a joint use, and the types of specialty shops that are in here as opposed to just general retail, I think that it's reasonable, and we ask the board to give consideration for the change of use. That's it.
Okay, thank you. John?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, information was submitted on behalf of Buttrick Ventures by Eric Mitchell's office, and we offer the following comments. Applicant shall, item number 1, the applicant shall provide appropriate professional endorsements, stamps, and signatures on the plans. Item 2, the applicant shall provide a digital copy of the complete plan set to the town at the time of signature by the board. Item 3, applicant shall resubmit the parking analysis to be stamped by a professional engineer as required by the site plan regulations. Item 4, the applicant shall submit a trip generation report prepared by a professional engineer that addresses how the change in use will affect the previously approved traffic study for specialty use retail over the entire site. Item 5, the applicant shall add a note to the plan that states no more than 59 seats shall be permitted in the restaurant at any time. The applicant shall also coordinate all documents to reflect that there are no more than 59 seats provided based on the floor plan seating layout submitted. Item 6, the applicant shall add the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services septic approval number for the revised septic design to the plan with the date of approval and notation identifying approval for the restaurant use, and include the revised plan with this set. Item 7 is financial guarantee if necessary, and lastly, the final engineering review. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Sophia?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add that I'm going to read a portion of the memo from Richard Canuel, our zoning administrator, dated February 8th, 2012, and this speaks directly to the flexible parking provision in the ordinance section 3.10.12.2. And the first part of Richard's memo, he basically does an analysis, and this is in your packet under the backup information for this particular item, but he reiterates what Mr. Mitchell has already shared with you about how the parking calculations were arrived at, and the fact that under the regulation it would be 70 spaces. And he goes on to say that the recalculated parking for the retail and restaurant uses on this site requires a minimum of 70 spaces as determined in that section, which results in a deficiency of parking compared to what is currently provided on the site. However, there are provisions in the ordinance that allow for flexibility in the parking count by authorizing the planning board through the granting of a conditional use permit to allow deviations from the prescriptive parking requirements. Reviewing the letter from Eric C. Mitchell, which references the ITE parking manual, I feel that he's made a valid argument for the consideration in reducing the required number of parking spaces. I would support the granting of a conditional use permit based on one very specific condition. One of the conditions should be linked to the 59-seat restaurant as proposed. I recommend that it be noted on the site plan that the proposal is for a maximum of 59-seat restaurant based on a specific floor plan and seating layout submitted as part of the site plan. And this would set a use-specific parking approval and provide an enforcement mechanism that should the need arise in the future. And the subsequent conditions in the approval would include these two items.
Okay. That's
Prior?
what yeah.
Did you want me to do this now, or wait till we hear from the board?
Yeah, why don't you do that
I think it
now?
would be good that the board
Yeah.
hear it now.
Prior to the issuance of the building permit for the remaining vacant space in the retail center, which is about 2,100 square feet, the applicant should provide the town with accurate parking counts over a 2-month period of time to include the hour between noon and 1 on weekdays, the peak hours between 4 and 6 on weekdays, and between 12 and 5 p.m. on Saturdays. This is when we anticipate the greatest crossover of uses in parking. If the analysis demonstrates that a sustained period of insufficient parking exists, the applicant shall secure alternative shared parking spaces in a number that meets the town's parking requirement prior to the issuance of a building permit. And this work should be performed by a professional engineer. And the other part of this is that after they complete their traffic analysis to look at the entire site, not just the addition of the restaurant, that difference in numbers may generate traffic impact fees. And so all required traffic impact fees must be paid prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. The staff's recommendation, based on the information available to date, is that the applicant has demonstrated that they have satisfied the criteria for shared parking in accordance with Section 3.10.12.2 of the zoning ordinance, and we recommend conditional approval of this application.
Okay, thank you. Anything to add, Andre?
No,
No,
they
sir.
addressed all the issues that I had with regard to the use of the restaurant, the parking is required, and also addressed the important point regarding the vacant retail space that's there, that if that were to be filled, then how that will be handled in the future, so I'm good.
Okay, I'll do the board, then we'll go to the public. Rick?
Nothing further to add.
Okay, Tom?
No, I'm all set.
Dana?
Question, is this expected to be open 7 days a week?
Yes, I believe it is. The restaurant, yes.
Then should not the condition for the parking, the evaluation over the 2-month period, should that not also include Sundays?
No, the time that they were looking at the parking, Dana, was based upon the information that was submitted by Eric Mitchell's office, and my recollection, Mr. Steer isn't open on Sundays.
He just said the restaurant is expected to be open
The
7 days.
restaurant, not Mr. Steer.
So the shared parking, in other words, would work because Mr. Steer is not using any of their parking spaces.
But I believe Mr. Steer is now open on 7 days a week.
You open 7 days a week, Chris? Are you open 7 days a week?
Open 7 days a week, we close at 6:30 at night, usually tone down around 6 o'clock on Saturday. Sunday, we close at 4. And Monday through Friday, we close at 6:30, but usually by 6 o'clock, we're toned right down.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think the request of the, in the memorandum from the code enforcement officer is dealing with peaks, and the peak hour on Saturday, or the peak time from 12 to 5, I think, if I remember that correctly, that's a higher usage than it is, say, on Sunday. And that's why we have a peak from, say, 4 to 6 or 12 to 1. Those are peaking hours during the week. We can do it if the board recommends that it be done on Sunday as well, but I think the Saturday, 12 to 5, if that's the recommendation, is a much higher peak in use, so that whatever was done on Sunday would be less. But we'll do what the board requests.
How does staff feel?
Eric's correct. You know, again, the peaking wouldn't be as drastic on a Sunday.
For a sports bar during football season
Really?
on a Sunday?
And
It's your call. You know, again, you can add it to it.
I mean, they're both figuring to be open 7 days a week.
Yep.
If we're gonna get a true traffic analysis, we need to cover the hours they're in operation.
Then make the motion that you add that to.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be added to the conditions. Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else, Dana? No. Okay.
No,
Mary?
I mean, my only concern is the parking as well.
Okay.
Nothing further.
Lisa?
My only question is if 2 months down the road you find that there's not enough parking, then what happens there? I understand that they would be obligated to do a study and all that, but how do you resolve that if there's not enough parking?
Eric?
If I understand the request correctly, it's prior to any building permits for the remaining retail space that is not yet filled. We would have to do this to show that that could still be used and have enough parking for the additional. So what we're proposing now can still go on. It isn't 2 months once the restaurant opens. It's 2 months. It's a 2-month period prior to asking for a building permit to use the additional space that's already vacant.
Right, no, I understand that, but if the space gets filled and then parking becomes a problem, I guess that's my question.
I think if I understood the memorandum, if we cannot satisfy the building department at the time that a building permit is requested for the additional vacant space after the restaurant's in, we have to have alternative means for parking. I think that's what it states.
Right.
They have to show that the parking is going to work, is going to be sustained in the future with the additional 2,100 feet occupied and requiring a number of spaces that it would require, so.
But Maria, so is what you're asking really?
How do you solve that problem?
Do they pave a new parking lot?
Yeah, how do they solve that problem?
What's next?
The-
I understand everything up
They look
to-
for shared opportunities with the properties next door, or they look to
Okay.
bus in their own employees. There
Okay, that's
are things that are
the answer I'm
outlined in the
looking for.
ordinance. It's up to them to figure out, which way, or
Okay.
they may do a combination of things.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great, everything sounds like that's in place here so far, but what do you do if it does hey, if all this business comes in, and that's a great thing, but,
Right.
what do you do with the parking at that point? If the restaurant's going well, you'd hate to say, oh, now the restaurant's a problem, down the road. So if there's avenues for, like you said, from the contractor to work out, getting additional parking elsewhere around the area, if they're willing to do that, then that answers my question.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it's done in some other places,
Mhm.
like the movie theater and everything.
Okay.
It's shared through the
Okay,
years.
see, yeah, I'm new to that stuff, so,
So they have their peaks at different times.
okay, thank you.
Okay, any butter or anyone from the public have any questions, comments, concerns on the zoning change? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. And,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Dana?
I'd like to make a motion, conditionally approve the site plan for Mr. Steer, Buttrick Adventures LLC, map 6, lot 30, for change of use, with the following precedent conditions and general and subsequent conditions as outlined in the letter dated February 8th to the planning board, with the change to general and subsequent condition number 1, that the analysis be between 12 p.m. and 5 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second by Rick. Any discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Abstentions, chair votes affirmative. And you have a conditionally approved change of use plan.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And next we have is a public hearing for growth management ordinance, determination of growth sustainability. And Andre has all numbers. I think we know what the answer's going to be, but
Yes.
we'll hear the he'll hear the long version, I guess, if it's.
All right. Let me take you through if you could advance it to the next one. As you know, this is the annual determination for the growth management ordinance. The board is obligated by ordinance to make this determination by March 1st of each year. And the way the ordinance is structured is that given the time that we made, the board, Londonderry made the revisions to its ordinance in 2002, it had to preserve the ordinance that was in place in 1998, which required 3 of the 3 criteria to be met. And thereafter, after 2002, the board changed the criteria from meeting 3 criteria, 3 of the 3, to meeting 2 of the 3. So as we do our analysis, if the first criteria or one of the criteria are not met, then obviously the 1998 version of the growth management ordinance is not affected, meaning that determination of unsustainable growth cannot be made with regard to the 1998 ordinance. And so as we move forward, you go to the next one. The criteria are broken down in the 3 parts, and the third part has 3 subsets. The first one being is that the present year number of building permits authorized by the building department exceeds the average rate of dwelling units authorized in Londonderry or the preceding calendar years. So basically, if that average this year, you'll see that average to be 55. So if the number of permits is less than 55 in Londonderry, then that criteria it will not be met. If it's over 55, then it will have been met. The second criteria is that how does Londonderry's growth compare to that of the abutting region? And the abutting region is that of Auburn, Derry, Hudson, Litchfield, Manchester, and Wyndham. And what we look at is the census-derived number of permits issued and the number of units also created in those respective communities, and we compare that rate of growth collectively against Londonderry's rate of growth. And if Londonderry's rate of growth is less than the region, then that criteria has not been met. If our rate of growth is greater than the region, then that criteria has been met. And then the third criteria, again, is broken into 3 subsets. One, based on the number of housing units created in Londonderry, does that outweigh or create a school population over the capacity of that of the school? And if that's found to be the case, then that criteria is met. So that means if one of these 3 items are met, then the category 3 is met. So if we find that the school enrollment is over the school capacity, then that's met. If it's under, then we go on to section 2, subsection 2, the strain on municipal public facilities, and that is done via an interview with each one of our bigger departments, much like the fire department, the police department, town clerk or town offices, a library. We find that the rate of growth is putting a strain on those particular departments through either through calls for service or overtime or things of that sort that would be generated because of high volume calls to those respective departments, or high volume or overtime with regard to the DPW, meaning that there's more streets that have to be plowed and so on and so forth, then that criteria could be met if the response is that such. But if it's not, then we go into a third category, and that's an analysis of the capital improvements budget that has been approved in 2011 compared to the budget that was approved in 2011. Does that CIP budget over 15% of that of the total budget? So if the CIP budget is percentage-wise 15% or greater of the overall budget, then that criteria had been met, meaning that obviously we are paying for infrastructure that is needed to attend our growth. So moving on to the actual application of those criteria, we will find this year that it doesn't go beyond 2, meaning that the first average of permits authorized over the preceding 6 years is 55. That's our average now. As you can, at one time it used to be 128.
And it will be again.
And now we're down to 55 because that's what the 6-year average brings us down to. But the number of building permits that were issued over the last year is 26. That's on how many actually permits, and that's how many resulting units that were created as a result of those permits, which is 26. And obviously 26 is less than 55, therefore that condition has not been met. It also applies to the 1998 Growth Management Ordinance, therefore, and that was predicated on 3 out of the 3 being met. So that way, the 1998 is no longer an issue that we have to evaluate. Going into the next one. The number of housing units authorized by Londonderry Building Division grew by 0.30%. If the board remembers, the reason why you have 5 decimal places out there because it became tight one year, and therefore the direction was to expand that decimal place out. And this so it's clear as to what the percentages are, and if it is close, we can make the determination how close. And but Londonderry grew by 0.3, the region grew by 0.49, therefore Londonderry grew slower than the region, therefore that condition has not been met. Given 2 of the 3 criteria had not been met, therefore we conclude the staff recommends that Londonderry will be in a period of sustainable growth, and therefore will be no cap on the number of building permits this year, and that decision goes up until December 31st of this year.
Okay, thank you, Andre.
You're welcome.
So we need a motion, don't we, to say that we're not in sustainable growth?
Right,
So moved.
okay. I have a
Most of my hands are like this.
motion by Dana that
Yeah.
we are not in a period of unsustainable growth, that we are sustainable for the ensuing year till December 31st, 2012. Second by Mary.
No, I think.
Oh, Rick, okay. Pretty quick there, Rick. You're sliding right in. Okay, any discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Abstentions, show affirmative. And the planning board has determined that we are in a period of sustainable growth to the end of this calendar year. Okay, next we have is the Evans Family Limited Partnership. Tax map 16, lot 9. This is a conceptual discussion of a proposed subdivision on Wilson Road, and the zoning is agricultural residential 1. So conceptual discussions are just that, they're discussions, no decisions are made, and we exchange ideas back and forth, and there's nothing that is binding. Welcome. It's been a while, again.
Good evening. My name is Don Duval, Charlie Evans. We're here to discuss a possible 8-lot subdivision on Wilson Road. If you're familiar with the area, we're talking Wilson Road south of Lance Ave. That portion of Wilson Road is a two-way road. The portion of Wilson Road north of Lance Ave, it's a one-way. And we're proposing, we proposed about 8 lots on it. Now, we've worked somewhat with an engineer, don't have those plans with us, but just trying to see if we could, if the lots were laid out as we've shown, if we could construct driveways that have safe driving distances, sight distance on the two, and we found that we could meet that on all the lots. The 6 lots that are on the one-way street, we looked at the sight distance as if the road continues to be one-way. Now, we had met with John, and I think Janos was with us probably more than a year ago. And the discussions, basically, we got into a discussion that I won't put words into John's mouth, but they were looking to say that most likely the road would have to be reconstructed at the client's cost. And the client will adjust that. And we were talking about, well, why does it have to be, since it seems to be working good now, especially with that portion of Wilson Road being one way. Janos is bringing up, well, who knows in the future, we may want to go back to two-way construction. We kind of got to an impasse, and I guess basically it broke down to John and them said, well, bring your concerns to the planning board on a conceptual discussion, lay it out, and knowing full well you can't make a decision, but just kind of got a feeling if the board would, what the board would consider.
Okay, I'm going to start with staff anyway before we get to the board, see what their input is. John, I'll start with you.
You know, this is shades of Page Road in a nutshell. Wilson Road, again, is a Class 5 road, paved road with an overall length of approximately 4,861 linear feet, about 9/10 of a mile. Roadway runs generally in a north-south direction from Auburn Road to the south to Old Dairy Road at the northerly end. What is being proposed as development is along approximately 3,200 linear feet of Wilson Road. 3 lots are being proposed along approximately 1,800 linear feet of the two-way portion, and there's 5 lots that are being proposed, again, north of Lance, along approximately 1,400 linear feet of the one-way portion. When we talk about the one-way portion was made one-way back in approximately 2006. It was due to 3 school bus accidents occurring within a 2-year period. I'm just going to, again, back when we were discussing the Page Road problems and the incidents and why the concerns about narrow roads, the school department had provided me a memo, and this is dated in August of 2011. I'll just summarize it. This was, again, from Peter Curo to myself. Don't waste time and echo the comments from fire and police. From a school district point of view, we only have to look at the situation at Wilson Road. Within 2 years, we had 3 bus accidents, all because the road was too narrow to allow a school bus and residential vehicle to pass. This is the sole reason we now have Wilson Road a one-way. An upgrade was far too costly to the town. So again, when Don indicated again, there was a one-way portion of Wilson Road, there is, and that was the reason being. And again, that's, as Don says, it's still our concern that one-way portion, again, was intended as an interim fix. It would entail reconstructing that portion of Wilson Road once funds would become available or development was proposed. The portions, again, of the one-way portion are as narrow as 12 feet. There's no drainage, ledge outcrops both sides, and poor sight distance. Snowbanks further exacerbate the narrowness and does not provide for adequate snow storage. The two-way portion, again, south of Lance, again, that area has minimal drainage, poor sight distance in areas, and poor intersection configuration with the intersection of Wilson and Auburn roads. The key issue at hand is the nature of the roads in the area. Currently, Wilson Road is a Class 5 paved road, and the width of travelway varies widely, as narrow as 12 feet in some areas. The creation of 8 additional lots would generate an additional 80 average daily trips to an existing roadway. Any additional trips will demand more frequent maintenance to an already difficult situation. It's Public Works feeling that allowing additional development on a substandard roadway which creates additional traffic is premature. So as Don said, we've had that discussion, and I think that pretty much summarizes a little history of how Wilson Road exists, and I would ask that everybody take a ride out there and take a look at, see the situation. All I have for now.
Okay, thanks, John. Cynthia?
No, Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, Andre?
I don't have much to add. Again, we, unfortunately, with regard to the substandard road, we fell into this situation twice so far in the last 5 years, one being West Road and the latest being Page Road, where, you know, you have substandard roads and obviously development being proposed off of there. And now we're at the issue as to how do we handle that? And unfortunately, given that there's no money budgeted for the upgrade of the road, it would be up to the applicant to upgrade the road if that's where they were going to move forward with immediately.
Okay, I'll do the board. I'll start with Rick.
I'm familiar with the road, and it's not good. So I wouldn't be for it.
Okay. Tom?
Since we didn't address the other one at Page Road, I think the board's consensus was they didn't want to do that, so I guess we're
Yeah,
same
I know
position.
Page Road was Veronica. They eventually withdrew, because I know we, that John and I, and who else was there? John Verani. We met, walked it and everything, and it was very, very difficult to do. And I know the school had strong concerns, and the police and fire also, about passage, because there was some narrow points there that were about 11, 12 feet wide. So. Dana?
Nothing.
No, okay. Mary?
Well, I understand there's nothing in the budget for the roads right now, but don't we have an obligation as a town to provide adequate road for people? I mean, there's already people living there right now, and 12 feet is not, adequate enough for a car to pass. I'm not saying that I think the town should have to pay the whole amount, but I think there should be a compromise between what the applicant has to pay and what the town comes up with.
I don't want to speak for Giannis, but I'm pretty sure if he was here, he'll tell you that $1 million bond or $1.5 million that he asks for every year to recondition roads, and I know he has a hierarchy. I'm pretty sure he'll lay that out and say that's the reason why that money is there for. Obviously, there's roads in town that have higher priorities than others, but I'm pretty sure this has got to be on the list somewhere. But at $1.5 million, which was reduced to $530,000, then you're not gonna.
Yeah, and that's what's so frustrating about this town. You're saving a penny, but it's costing us $1.
Well, since we're going to bring that up, it says it was my point in changing that.
No, that was you.
It's not saving a penny, Mary. It's saving about approximately 20% in interest over the long term.
Yeah.
I mean, you may disagree with it, but math is math. I'm not in favor of paying $1.20 in costs to get $1 of a repair. You have to break the cycle. The council decided to do this, and at deliberative session, there was no change to that. So, I mean, I understand, but the fact is, Mary, we can't afford to pay for everything.
And I wasn't really speaking to that issue. I didn't mean to touch that issue. I just meant that even with the road program fully funded, this is going to fall somewhere in the hierarchy. You know, there's going to be some the roads that just needs maintenance right now, total reconstruction maintenance right now. And I'm not sure where this falls, but I'm sure that's in the middle and towards the lower of the pack.
Right, but would it be less expensive as a town if we made the decision that from Lance north, it would stay one way, and we would only construct it to, you know, to provide for that one-way traffic? And that would, you know, I'm just saying, I just believe there should be a way that our town can work with applicants so that the burden doesn't fall completely on them when it's an, you know, when it's a home that they're gonna build, not a business that they're gonna build.
No, I understand that. I kind of like the business aspect of it too, but on the other hand, I guess that's a conversation that the town has to have with
Right.
regard to its
No, I
roads,
understand.
because
It's not
I'm
at
sure
this
that
level.
Giovanni Verani will love to be ahead of Charlie on this, and the developer off of Watts Road want to be ahead of both of them, because, you know, they're in and would love to have the town take some of the share of this off and whatever, but that's a conversation the town has to have with
Right.
regard to how it wants to prioritize the construction of its roads.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same kind of the information we broached with Giovanni Verani, was that, you know, we have to have that conversation, how we want to do that.
And I thought when we did have that conversation, that staff's position was, you know, if Arani was coming in and paying 30 or 40% of the total cost of that road, that was just too bad. It wasn't good enough. And while I was in favor of at least looking at that, because if I can get 30 cents on the dollar, I'd be willing to do that. I mean, you know, maybe I've, you know, need memory medicine here, but I thought the board was almost unanimous against my position on that. So I'm just wondering, you know, where was the epiphany that now we're going to consider this?
Oh, no, I'm not even considering it. It's just that those are issues that were brought up in the past. I think the position is still the position. If there's development going to take place on there, they'll be responsible for 100% of the cost. All I'm saying is that with regard to roads in general, and touching on Mary's issue with regard to, is there a halfway point or whatever, and also touching on your point with Giovanni Verani, is there a halfway point? That's something the town wants to consider. I don't think we're going to decide that tonight, but is this something in the future that if that's how we want to handle it, then we've got to have the money there to do our share? And how that gets reallocated or done, then we'll figure that one out.
Cynthia?
I just wanted to point out that it's probably not really excellent planning practice to put a residence on a one-way street when the desire may be from another direction because of convenience. So that's usually a disadvantage to have a residence on a one-way street.
Yes. Yeah, because basically the existing traffic on Wilson Road is a town's responsibility.
Right.
And I think from the 8-lot subdivision that's planned, the additional traffic would be up to the applicant. And I know we had the same situation with Verani, but the town just didn't have any money. And one of John's options was to submit a warrant article for town meeting, which he chose not to do. I think because of the tightness of you know, the budget and everything, and the priorities within the listing, as Andre had mentioned. Anything else, Mary?
No.
Laura?
I'm familiar with the road, and I'd only say that I think that there's a difference between the town's responsibility to maintain existing roads and a responsibility to bring any country road up to a standard that would support a development. And I think that's probably where you'd have your argument, is how much how much responsibility does the town bear to bring everything up to a standard that would be acceptable right now. I don't see a development working very well on this road unless it was improved, and I fall on the side of not thinking it's the town's responsibility to improve it beyond the way it's been.
Question, how many of the 8, well, let me go back. How much of this roadway are we talking about is unacceptable? Is there a portion of it that is acceptable? In other words, you mentioned it goes one way, and I am familiar with this road too, where it goes one way above, what, Lance Avenue, I believe?
Yep.
But south of Lance Avenue, so are you saying north of Lance Avenue, that's where it's
That's where the real.
the
you know,
issue is?
Issue is, but again, even south of the land, so too, because, you know, again, there's not much drainage,
There's
facilities
drainage
in that.
issues?
Yeah,
Okay, and what about the width of the road?
the width of the road as well.
Okay. I was trying to look for some kind of compromise to ask the developer if maybe they would consider putting, 3 and not 8 if that portion of the road was acceptable, but doesn't sound it. So, no, then I'd have to agree with Laura on this and the rest of the board that it's unfortunate, but,
If I may?
yeah.
Yeah, part of our discussion was on the road, we're looking at, well, would we be responsible just where you're going for the portion in the one-way portion? And Giannis was kind of almost looking, saying, well, geez, it's gotta go from Old Derry Road to Auburn, if I got the right road. He was almost implying the whole thing, all the way through, even more than, even more than the frontage of this parcel. So that's probably the first impasse we got at. He says, well, we're looking, trying to develop here, but you're looking to get reconstructed here. So that threw it out. So now, I don't know, it'll be up to, the landowner how he wants to proceed, but I'm just kind of listening with interest to what the
Because
board's
we're
saying.
adding 80
Yeah.
additional trips.
Yeah.
No, because it's curious, when the Page Road issue came up, one of the suggestions I had would, or just a consideration, I suppose, not a suggestion, was could we consider a portion of it to be one-way? And the response back to me was, not really, there are pinch points that are just way too narrow, and the trip around the long way would just be not, it wouldn't work. So here I see before me a scenario that I had envisioned on that and said, well, could it be considered? But it sounds to me like it would be a rather costly endeavor.
Maria?
Yeah, I tend to agree with everybody else. I mean, 12-foot wide at the narrowest point is tough. I'm just picturing buses, with that many more homes on the block, and, so I'm kind of agreeing with what everybody else has been saying up here.
I have a question.
Yes, Tom?
Do buses go down it now?
Yeah,
They do.
yeah. Because there's people on the right side of the road,
Okay,
east side of the road.
thank you.
Yeah, Charlie?
If I may, this road's been like this for a long period of time, obviously. In 2006, someone had the idea of first they talked about one-way the whole length, and the situation came up with the point you just made about the whole would be unrealistic. But the idea of going from one way from Lance Ave North is very convenient, because of the way Lance Ave is configured. The people in the one-way section, they're coming north, they go up Auburn Road, on Wilson Road, in two-way, then they go on the one-way. If they want to come around, they just go out on the Bardwell and back on the Lance. So the one-way part works very well in the configuration it is now. Now, prior to 2006, the road was two-way, and the town approved subdivisions on Wilson Road then. They approved, in the last 10 years, there's probably been 6 lots approved on the right side going up. Now, how can they have approved those lots in the last 10 years and the road has virtually changed? In fact, in 2006, the situation's been improved with the one-way portion, and now they're telling us we can't develop 8 lots. I'd encourage you all to go down Wilson Road, because I think with the one-way situation, I lived on Wilson Road till about, for 25 years, up to about a year ago, and when it was two-way, the development up, Lawantane's development up on Bardwell Road was put in, Mill Pond and Mill Run, whatever it is.
Mill Pond.
And Wilson Road was a throughway to 93. And there was no offsite improvements collected for that traffic when all those houses were put in. We can make the site distance, which is considerable, on the two-way section both ways, and we can meet the site distance one-way and the one-way. And I think that that configuration, the way it is right now, works very well. And I'd like to make an appointment with you, John, to take me out there and show me the 12-foot section, where it's 12 foot wide. Because I don't believe that it's 12 foot wide. It may be, it may be narrow, but it's not 12 feet of pavement. I'd like to show me that area. So I guess what I'd like the board to do is to, in the leisure, go out and check that out. Buses are going down it now. There hasn't been any issues since it's been changed to one-way, correct? There's no accidents and no...
You're pushing just to keep it one-way, Charlie, if I understand.
I think it's a perfect alternative. It was a great idea, and it wasn't mine. It was a fantastic idea. When they were gonna make the whole street one-way, I saw a logistic problem.
It was a Band-Aid to a problem.
Well, I think if they did it, made Wilson Road one-way, the whole length, I think it would have been a Band-Aid. But I think the way that Lance Ave and that loop to Bardwell Road comes around, the configuration for the one-way north, Lance Ave north, I don't think I've talked to a few of the residents up there, and they don't have a problem with it. The other thing it's done is, you got traffic going home north that go all the way through, but you don't have the traffic in the morning, was horrendous, and, it's cut it down. I think it's made a situation that's, was a problem, something that's workable for the foreseeable future. And with, the additional trips we're talking about generating, it's very insignificant to the whole picture.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Could we ask staff to respond in the next meeting or so to his claim about the lots that have been approved by the planning board prior to 2006?
Yeah, I think we need to look at the, the past history and how the subdivisions were handled then. Because I think that's a critical thing. I think the next thing is for all the planning board members to at least take a good look at Wilson Road. Some of us are probably familiar with it, some of us probably not so familiar. It's been one of the problematic town roads, and it seems that my lifetime here, forever. That and Page Road, I'm sure there's some other roads that are, the town has, it's been like at the bottom of the list for improvement, so nothing really much has been done. And the thing is, when someone wants to build on it, there's, the impact that they're creating by the additional traffic. The town probably really is, the cost to the town is probably really the bulk of it, yet the town really has no money to fund it, so it just, kind of sits there. I don't think we want this to sit there. I think we need to probably explore if there are any other possibilities on how to do it, and, put the minds together, and if it can be done, but I don't know. I thought that was Page Road, but we reached a point where it just wasn't going to happen.
I think that's the point that we're at with Charlie as well. Charlie, you didn't say anything this evening that you haven't already told us upstairs.
Well, I know.
That Lance Road,
Well, we
that portion north of
disagree,
Lance
and-
works well, and
We
yes,
disagree.
that's your position, and that's not our position.
Well, I think that, I don't blame the Public Works Department for getting, if they get an opportunity to have a road rebuilt at somebody's cost other than the town, I don't blame them for that. Doesn't make you bad guys. But the reality of it is, there's been other lots approved on that road in the last, some in recent 6 years, and some since 2000, there's been at least
Well, I've been here
6 or
since
7.
2001, Charlie, and I can only think of one lot, two lots, Reeds.
We had a
Lots.
6-lot subdivision with Auburn Road.
Yeah, Auburn Road
And,
is just,
there's 3 on Wilson, and Charlie built a house during that time also, on Wilson Road.
Yeah, the ones on Auburn, there's a couple on Auburn.
3 there, and there was 3 that went on Wilson.
there was 3 new ones on Wilson, and then there was three, that was a new subdivision. And then there was and there was additional lots that were,
We'll have to do the
Previously
research.
subdivided.
We'll have to
but I
do
mean,
the
no, it's,
research.
the road, it's not to the point where it's unmanageable, that's my point. And eight additional lots with what's there, with a one-way configuration, it's not gonna, that's not the straw that's gonna break the camel's back. I mean, I think it's not a perfect road, no, but it's workable. We don't, I don't have a problem with deeding some right-of-way, wide, for future widening down the road. The lots are pretty good size that we're proposing. We can afford to shave off to do some, alignment in the future. But to have us, say, the buck stops here, I don't think that's fair, I don't think it's realistic.
Talking to them, I've heard it.
Well, I don't think it's, I think when you, again, I invite you to go down there at your leisure and take a ride through there and look at it and, you know, and envision 8 lots along, you know, half a mile of frontage, over half a mile of frontage. You know, the impact is insignificant.
What's the additional traffic count from the
Be an additional 80 trips.
80 trips? Okay. Yeah, Andre?
I just want to mention, just one correction to Charlie's statement as to when Mill Pond was put in there. There was an impact fee system created as a result of that project that was going to take care of the, that was going to contribute towards the improvement of the Auburn-Wilson intersection. And therefore, that was created and also made part of the Route 28 Eastern Impact Fee program as well.
And those improvements, I believe, Andre, were complete, or there were improvements that were completed at the intersection of Wilson and Old Dairy Road.
Old Dairy Road, yeah.
Yeah.
But Wilson and Auburn, I don't know if they were or not.
Okay, so there's 2 things we need to do, I guess, as a board. One is to research the minutes to, you know, to see what occurred on the subdivision, and 2 is for the board to travel and take a good look at the road. And probably have a subsequent meeting just to kind of put it together, or,
Sure, fair enough.
yeah.
My only other question, though, too, for Dawn, you're also showing 2 lots on Jerry Lane. What's that all about?
You bring that back, yeah.
It's up to you, you know, because again, Jerry Lane's a Class 6 road.
I think Charlie just wanted us to come up for a conceptual that something could be done on Jerry Lane. My opinion was, this is really the one we
crux of
should
it.
concentrate on. But there is, since you brought it up, there is a possibility, at least on paper, of 2 additional lots up on Jerry Lane.
However, you don't have frontage on the Class 5 or better roadway.
Right.
So technically, you can't, you would not be able to subdivide that.
It would require variance. I mean, they've done several houses out there now, there's 2 or 3 houses out there now.
As long as you're, you know,
We're
has
aware
nothing
of
to do
that.
with this board.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have to go
Asking
before
the question because it was in your
ZBA.
letter. It was in your letter talking about 2 lots on Jerry, so.
Yeah.
Okay, enough said.
But again, I know that there's no way that could even get to the board without going through a variance. This one has a possibility if the meeting somehow minds could be met as to what to do with the one-way portion, or what I'm looking at, the one-way portion of Wilson Road.
All set, thank you.
Okay, I guess that's about as far as we can go at this point, anyway. But we'll work at it, see what can be done. I know we did the same thing with Verani, but it just wasn't there. At some point in the future, yes. Yeah. We have a windfall for taxpayers. That'll make Giannis very happy.
So, we're going to attend to the subsequent meeting might take place?
We probably would just discuss it at a regular meeting, or at least maybe some point in the future, we put it on as a conceptual discussion again.
Yeah, we could do that because, given that it's a
Maybe that'd be the
conceptual
best
hearing,
way.
as long as we know a week in advance, we can put it onto an agenda.
Okay,
Second,
let us know.
Yeah,
second, I should say, the second meeting
A couple of months or something.
of the month.
yeah. Okay,
We can
we'll
put
let
it on.
we'll let Andre do the coordinating. Andre and John, and Cynthia. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, next item we have is TCI, Columbia Realty LLC, they're the owner, TCI is the applicant. Tax map 14, lot 21-2. This is a conceptual discussion for a potential industrial use at 7 Delta Drive. This is zoned industrial 2. And anyone here to discuss that? Oh, okay. We just need names for the record and everything, and there's one very familiar face there. Chuck?
When Mike came along to show him the way.
Oh, okay.
And, I've been with him for, I don't know, 8 or 9 years. The company has moved to
Yeah, why don't you use the microphone there, Chuck, so, and so people watching can hear also.
The company started in Amherst, and a couple of years ago, they outgrew the building they had there, and so they bought a building right across from Women's on Bouchard Street, which was much too big, and we've grown out of that now. And we've just bought another building. We thought you'd like to know about the company and whatever, so that anything that we talk about in the future, at least you'll understand what it is, what it does.
Oh, okay, that's very handy. Well, welcome anyway, and just, why don't you sit down at the microphone so people can hear? And
Tell you who's Ed Frechette is the project and facilities engineer, and Fran Enzian is the plant manager.
Okay.
Thank you, Chuck. I did bring out some handouts for the board, if you don't mind.
Yes, you go right ahead.
Just to give you a little background about textiles, TCI, as it's known, textiles code. And we brought a couple simple storyboards to show you basically what TCI does, and our current home at 200 Bouchard Street. And you may or may not know that the building does continue into Londonderry. Our current building is actually in Londonderry as well as Manchester.
Hi, my name is...
Yeah, why don't you,
Actually,
you can sit there and use the microphones.
Sure.
And we can...
Again, I'm Fran Enzian. I'm the plant manager down at Textiles Coated.
Okay.
As Ed Frechette mentioned, we are located on 200 Bouchard Street in Manchester, but there's a portion of our facility that actually falls over into Londonderry, so we're right on the border. The portion of our building that's in Londonderry is basically a warehouse attached to our manufacturing facility. And we wanted to just introduce to you what we manufacture in Manchester, which is going to stay in that facility. What we're looking at doing down in 7 Delta Drive is just using it as warehousing some of our raw materials. And we can go into what type of raw materials we're looking at warehousing down at Delta Drive. I'll basically, did you give them handouts?
Yes.
Okay. What we are is a flexible composite manufacturer. Our largest industry is what we call expansion joint materials, which if any of you've ever been up to the Bow Power Plant, they have a big scrubber up there, and they put little joints on the back end of their scrubber to compensate for expansion and contraction of all the ductile. These are high-tech pieces of fabric. They can be anywhere from 12 inches wide to 3 feet wide, but have diameters from anywhere from 18 inches of diameter up to 280 inches of diameter. So it's on relatively large ducting. That's our largest market, and it's made out of composite materials. Fiberglass, fluoropolymers are more commonly known as Teflon, going into the construction of these materials. We also sell a lot of material into a market called insulation jacketing, which is also a chemical protective market where if you have a valve in some of these power plants, we'll actually manufacture the material that gets fabricated into a cover that goes onto these to protect them from chemicals, heat, and exposure to the environment. We're also in the business of supplying materials to the petroleum industry on the storage containers where they actually have little covers that float up and down as the level changes. And we have a vapor barrier that goes around the outside to keep any of the gases from escaping into the environment. All these materials are manufactured down in our plant in Manchester on Bouchard Street. And again, other industries we're in, cell covers for flooring manufacturing. That's actually a business that's actually leaving this country, unfortunately. So we're actually phasing out of that business, but we are getting into other new markets into the food industry, food preparation, cooking of chickens and meats on conveyor belts, as widely done across the country. Companies like Tyson would be like a company that would buy materials from us to cook your pre-processed foods, for those of you who eat that stuff. Again, our building on Bouchard Street is, how many square feet is there?
86,000.
Yeah, and of that 86,000, it's about 60,000 of it is manufacturing. About 25,000 square feet of warehouse space, which is all in the Londonderry area. As Chuck mentioned, we are expanding. When I got there 5 years ago, that warehouse was empty, and with your approval, we actually closed it in because everything was open to the snow, and it's kind of tough to store stuff out there. We put sprinkler systems in. Now we're grown so big we have to kind of move some of that raw material out. Our raw materials that we manufacture or purchase are really fiberglass woven fabric is the largest. It's the same kind of fiberglass you folks would see in your walls, except for it gets turned into little strands of yarn and woven into a mat. And we use that to coat with our fluoropolymers and laminate our films to it. That's really the majority of what we'll be storing over in the facility over there. We have a fairly high inventory level because we purchase from all around the world, and we like to bring it in relatively large volumes. So we can store anywhere from 3 to 6 months of inventory, and we just have nowhere to put it right now. For the last 6 months, we've been storing it out in rented trailers in our parking lot, which we've now want to move and give us some more parking spaces in Merrimack, or in Manchester and Londonderry, which we do drastically need right now. So that's really what our plan is. If you guys have any questions about our materials or what else we do, it's really a unique business. We're pretty much the global leader in non-metallic flexible expansion joints, which
most people already never heard of.
yeah, most people would never even think about it. But, and we are a very well-known company in the environmental protection industry for chemical protection. So we look forward to moving into our new facility. We just recently purchased it. Nice location. Come visit us.
Yeah,
So when you grow out of that, we have this great airport area.
Well, Ed explained a little bit more of what our layout's going to look like. Did you guys have any pictures of the?
Yeah, we have that on our
Yes.
computers.
Yeah, it's not a very good picture, but the building that we recently purchased at 7 Delta Drive, which was Electropack. Electropack, the building owner was Columbia Realty. It is now owned by Wesley Properties, LLC. Wesley Properties is Stephen Tippett. He is the president of TCF. So maybe the paperwork hasn't caught up, but the building is no longer, December 16th, Wesley Properties bought it from Columbia Realty. So I just wanted to make a clarification there. And I'm not sure where that paperwork hasn't caught up on it.
Yeah, basically what we pull up is whatever the tax card shows at the time, so I'm sure that once that paperwork does.
Wesley Properties will be paying the taxes.
There'll be taxes coming in, so.
We'll be happy to take them.
Again, it's the same company, okay, but, you know, for whatever tax purposes. Again, the building at 7 Delta Drive, what I call the high bay area, is 22,100 square feet. The rest is office for about a total of 25,000 square feet. And as Fran said, we want to be able to free up space, which means we'll be coming to the Londonderry zoning board at some point to get that, what is our warehouse space now at 200 Bouchard Street rezoned, because it is just warehouse. So our thought is to be able to warehouse at 7 Delta for the time being and expand the manufacturing base at 200 Bouchard Street. Of course, in would be expanding into Londonderry. We have nowhere else to go.
That's fine with us.
Yeah. Well, it's fine with us. So, it's basically just a snapshot. We really don't intend to use the office areas. We would.
It'll be just it'll be kind of vacant for the time being anyway.
Yeah, we'd probably only have a couple of people working here. We would probably do receiving operations. We would have raw materials coming into 7 Delta and coming out of 7 Delta in our own truck over to 200 Bouchard Street. We would, a lot of this building was air conditioned because it was a circuit board manufacturer, Electropack. We would take some of that air conditioned space so that we could store our PTFE resins, Teflon.
It's Teflon.
Without making DuPont mad. So that's what we coat most of our stuff with is Teflon, and it works best if it's kept cool, kept around 55 to 60 degrees year round. So these are things that we would approach the building department with. In fact, I've already submitted a commercial, what do we call it, Andre?
What's that?
The fit-up permit for commercial.
Yeah, that would be a commercial. Yeah.
We've
Commercial,
already actually put that application in. There's a lot of work we need to do to the building. It's got to be brought up to electrical code. A lot of stuff was just removed when Electropack left the building 4 or 5 years ago. So those are the things that we've applied for permits for, to get this up to somewhere that we could actually begin to occupy, to put people at the site. So that's kind of our plan. Again, we really came here to introduce TCI. We had Andre come through our 200 Bouchard, gave him a tour, so he has a good idea of what it is we do. We'd invite any of the board to come to 200 Bouchard Street and see our operation.
There's an invite board.
Yeah.
We're very happy that you're doing so well. Congratulations,
great to
and
hear.
Yeah,
good
very-
luck in the future as well.
What's really good is that an existing building is being used,
Right.
and empty.
Yep.
Probably not tax-paying facility will become a tax-paying, successful facility for us.
I mean, originally we have multiple types of manufacturing in Manchester. Some of it's very, it's non-equipment related. It's more, fabrication of these expansion joints, which is all manual labor, heat sealing pieces together and making parts. Originally, we thought maybe we would move that over there, but just the logistics of, we've grown, 30, 40% over the last 5 years, but, to kind of split our operation up and having multiple, it gets pretty tough when you start thinking about that.
Nice land right up by the airport. Big, great big building.
And, like Ed said, we will be coming back, as we look at future growth, because our only option in the future is going to be in Londonderry, because we really can't go anywhere in Manchester right now. It's kind of, we have nowhere to expand other than, in the
Welcome
back.
to the neighborhood.
Well, as well as I know, Fran and I both have been in the PTFE coating industry for 30 years. And we've both been with TCI for about 5 years. We came out of much larger company in Merrimack, New Hampshire. But one thing I know about TCI, the wind's blowing a different direction in a year. We'll probably be back. We're going to want to change the use of that building. But for the time being, it's going to help us in our growth. The only other thing was I had passed this out basically just to give you some background about the company. It was established in 1985 in Amherst, New Hampshire, by the president I spoke of, Steve Tippett, who often comments in some of our meetings about us ChemFab guys. And I have to tell Steve, don't forget your roots, because Steve was a ChemFab salesman many, many years ago. That's probably why he hired us. Payback. We relocated from Amherst to Manchester in 2005 and 2006 over a period of time, not to interrupt our customers. Another thing we're very proud of is the growth of the company. When I joined the company 4 or 5 months ago, I was number 82. As of today, we're 165 employees. That's quite a lot of growth.
Very successful.
We are environmental stewards. We do not emit anything. We're covered under permits by the state of New Hampshire, and we virtually create no hazardous waste. We use everything. It's very expensive, our products. We have a stellar safety record at TCI. We had one OSHA recordable last year on our OSHA log that we just posted on our bulletin boards. Minor cut, but it required a couple stitches. Very proud of that. We're very proud of our high employee morale. Very proud of our employees, many of which have been there many, many years. And we have thousands of satisfied customers worldwide. We do ship all over the entire world. There's no place we don't touch. We are a world leader in flexible non-metallic expansion joints, as Fran said. Customer appreciation. Bulletin boards are covered with notes from our customers. We satisfy their needs, and most importantly, on time. Product development. Flexible coated fabrics, as Fran talked about, the fiberglass and the PTFE. Our laminated flexible composites and our flexible fabricated products that we actually make at 200 Bouchard Street. So, again, we welcome the board if you'd love to come and see our operation. We're very proud of it. Very clean plant. I think you'd be quite impressed.
Oh.
Ask Andre.
Very, very good to hear.
I just have a question.
Cynthia.
Yeah.
It seems like you can just move in and do your interior fit up and that you don't really need any further approvals from this board. Is that correct?
Yeah, could I?
Okay, Andre?
Or no?
I just want to echo what Mr. Fischetti was kind enough to take me on a tour of the facility on Bouchard Drive, Bouchard Street last year, and it was great to go over there and open up the door and see a welcoming sign for me. That was real nice touch. And so the operation there is fantastic. You know, it is fantastic, and I'm glad that a portion of it lies in Londonderry. On January 9th, Richard Canuel, our senior building inspector, and myself met with Mr. Bichette at this site and went over the layout and what they propose to use for that site, and find that it's consistent with the I-2 zoning in that area, and they're just looking to fit up the building. There will be no additions or anything of that sort. So it's just a matter of pulling a permit and getting those things done through the building department. But Ms. Fritchett did want to come here tonight, just to introduce the company so you have a better understanding of what they do presently and what they intend to do at this site. And again, as the Economic Development Director, I welcome them to Londonderry, and hopefully it leads to bigger and better things to come in the future.
We plan to be a good neighbor.
Appreciate you coming.
Yes, and likewise here too. Just want to, whatever you need, just work with our town staff, because they're very capable, they're very good, and we have a nice, very good workable team here. So feel free to, contact them, whatever you need. And, if we need any further discussions, that's certainly very doable. And it's basically we're here to, work with you and address your needs, because that's what we need is good, viable, successful businesses.
Yep. Well, we'll do that, and everybody we've met from Londonderry has been wonderful. I've met with John Trotter many times, discussing possibilities with our building in Londonderry. Not this particular building, but been very helpful. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much for coming.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Chuck, great to see you again.
Somebody next.
Let's come back more often, Chuck.
They're clear. They just want to.
Okay, next item we have is Patricia Panciocco, who's a trustee. Tax map 7, lots 7 through 10. This is a request for a rehearing of a previously denied appeal by PMP Revocable Trust of an impact fee assessment per section 1.2.8.1 of the zoning ordinance. And our appeals section for impact fees is under section 1.2.8. And 1.2.8.1 reads, any aggrieved party may appeal to the planning board the amount of the public facilities impact fee under the procedures established by the board for handling such appeals. So, and that's what we are here for, is a rehearing. Want to note that when we had met at the hearing with Ms. Panciocco on December 12th, 2011.
14th.
Pardon?
It's December 14th.
December 14th, 2011. That she had said that there was a November 22nd letter that, we hadn't received at that time. And the reason we hadn't received that letter, because it was not addressed to the planning board. It was addressed to both Andre and Dave Karen, and no CCs to the planning board or anything. So that is a reason that we did not have that letter, which was provided to us. And we have a letter from also the 1st of January 10th of 2012. So basically from the initial letter, the 22nd of November letter, 2011, and then the testimony from the December 12th, 2011 meeting, and then the letter from January 10th of 2012. We have the information that has been provided for the board to review. Our staff has reviewed it, and our attorney has reviewed it. And let me get the stuff here.
All right, just so I could provide some just guidance with regard to what the board is considering. And that is, given that the decision to not accept the applicant's appeal was made on December 14th, she has supplied a letter dated January 10th to the board regarding a possible rehearing, and if the board agrees with a rehearing, then we'll set a date for that rehearing. But the only thing that the board has to decide is that based on the letter and based on information also provided to the board via our art and our legal counsel and staff, you'll make a decision whether or not to accept the rehearing or not.
So that's basically a board decision. Usually the reason you have a rehearing is for any new information.
Is there any new information?
I mean, I haven't found any, so.
You have the letter that's, again, dated December 10th, 2012, and within that, if there's any additional information within that letter that would lead the board to rethink its decision that it made on December 14th, then obviously the board can make a decision whether or not a rehearing is warranted. That doesn't mean, even if you grant a rehearing, doesn't mean that you agree with the appeal. This means that you disagree, that you will rehear the case. But if there's nothing in here that changes your mind whatsoever, that the decision that you made on December 14th is valid, then you decline the rehearing, and the applicant will have a opportunity to address recourse at another level.
Okay, how does the board feel?
Should we hear from Ms. Panico? Or are we only allowed to look at the letter?
The letter's here, the appeal letter is here.
No, but
Yeah.
could she point out what she thinks is anything new that we should consider, or?
I guess the board's at this purview to.
Yeah, that's up to,
Oh, okay.
yeah. We certainly can ask that of.
If she wants to.
Yeah, if she wants to.
I agree,
Okay, so-
Tom.
Can you just tell me about this last paragraph out here? In this case, the corridor study did include these costs. So what is that saying?
So basically, that's what we had said at the, I think, December 14th meeting, was this is the 102 corridor, since it's a state highway.
Yeah.
That The only impact fees would be at the intersections, so it'd be modified
Correct.
from, and that's what, I don't know if anyone's got the verbatim minutes from the December 14th meeting, but that is, part of the evidence also that is before us.
This means for everybody in the future, not for anybody in the past.
Right. It's something that we will be, I think right now staff is going through the,
Correct,
making
and
the changes.
and I think.
And those changes will come to us.
Correct. And I think I laid out a schedule at our last meeting as to when we were going to address the Route 28 corridor as well as address the Route 102 corridor. So tonight, we're going to be re-looking at the Route 28 corridor, and that gets me back to a statement that was made back on December 14th, and that, Ms. Pasianco, as well as others, has brought some good information to light from staff's perspective that Londonderry is examining and also in talking with our legal counsel with regard to our impact fee ordinance. Changes are being undertaken based on a lot of that information, and tonight we'll have a discussion on one aspect of it. But these comments are being heard, and those things that we need to react to, we're reacting to.
Doesn't mean we agree with everything, but we are looking at everything to make
Correct.
sure that things are proper, that are brought to our attention. So Rick and Tom, Dana?
If she has new information that she can point out, I read through it, I saw no new information.
Okay. Mary?
If there's no, I don't see any information that's any newer than what we'd already heard.
Okay.
Neither do I, unless that's not correct, and I don't see the point.
Okay.
Same for me.
Yep.
So, the board has, at least, has read through everything and has seen that there's nothing new. And I think what would happen would be a rehash of what we had before, and I think, basically Bart's letter to us, it makes things very, very clear for us.
So I think the board has to make a decision on the rehearing request.
So it has to be a motion?
Correct.
Yes. And there's a whole proposed decision of rehearing. It's probably rather, there's four pages of it. I think it'd be rather lengthy to read, but that will be part of the decision-making. It is a decision-making process.
You're talking about the letter from Bart?
Yes, the proposed decision on rehearing.
And please give consideration to the latter part of that with regard to if the board were to pursue changes to the Route 102 corridor, that aspect of the impact fee that was assessed to Ms. Pasianco's lots will be adjusted accordingly if that's the direction the board chooses to go. So if we were to remove the roadway segments from the Route 102 corridor, that will result in a reduction in the impact fee. Therefore, it'll be recalculated and a new assessment will be given based on that.
And that's basically what she asked for, that she did not agree with the cost of the fee that was assessed. We've reviewed it, and this is the conclusion. And basically, the last paragraph reads, finally, the board recognizes the law as it does not allow the collection of impact fees to underwrite the cost of capital improvements associated with facilities not owned or operated by the town. In this case, the corridor study did not include these costs. Did include these costs, pardon me. Therefore, the planning board has instructed staff to recalculate the highway impact fee so as to exclude all costs but those associated with intersections of town and state highways.
Art?
Yes.
May I just ask a question about that? My memory, and please correct me if I'm wrong, my memory of the December meeting was that when we denied her request for a review, I don't remember exactly what it was called, I thought we said something about looking at the fees moving forward, but not changing things retroactively. And I do not have a problem with amending that if that's what Bart is recommending. But I guess in denying her appeal before and saying that at the time, are we required to revisit it if we're going to make what looks to be an adjustment to what we did last time? Does anybody else remember this?
I
No, we
do.
did do
That
that.
struck me,
Yes,
that last
yes.
paragraph struck me
That's
as,
why I was asking for
wait a
clarification
minute, that's
on
not
the
what we
last
said.
paragraph. But, so, because we had talked about if we were to change the way we calculate the impact fees and adjust them, then we have to go back to every person that you've assessed that impact fee to and give them a rebate, basically.
The board, obviously, in talking this matter with our legal counsel, obviously, we will obviously cross that bridge when we have to, but the matter at hand is the one that is being before us, and whether or not, if we were to make changes to the impact fee ordinance, whether, how far it has to be retroactive or whatever, we'll work with legal counsel on that aspect of it.
But to Mary's point, though, I think we had to, I recall having a conversation about setting any precedent in that regard, and that was the basis for that discussion.
Yes, yeah.
I know, I think it was Dana that asked that question. It said, is that if we do that, it's from that point forward, nothing retroactive. And the response initially was yes. Once we make an adjustment to the impact fee ordinance, then it would be in effect from that point forward. Although we are still having some conversation with our legal counsel as to other issues that, that may be involved with that.
So are we saying that from the date that this impact fee was assessed, there would be that date forward?
Yeah, well, nothing has been paid, at least I didn't.
I thought you
think
had
so.
the money. I thought you did
nothing.
pay the impact fee already.
No.
No, I believe there's nothing has been paid.
I
It's-
thought that- I
No.
thought that-
Yeah, there's
Okay.
no permits or anything, nothing has been paid to date.
Okay.
Okay, so basically the matter before us is to have a rehearing or not have a rehearing.
Well, this is my question. Sorry, but that's my question. Must we rehear it in order to make an adjustment about what we talked about last time? I don't know if we have to go back and reopen the issue and say, but okay, now we're...
We did discuss it, I know, at the December 14th meeting.
Are you asking whether or not we have to open a public hearing?
What I'm
for
saying
this,
is,
and
when
then-
we heard her appeal, we denied it.
Yes.
And as part of the denial, we said, and if at some future date this formula is adjusted, we're not going to revisit your impact fee. So if we're now saying we will revisit your impact fee and possibly adjust it in the future, that's fine. But I'm asking, do we need to revisit her appeal in order to make this adjustment? Or can we just make this adjustment today and still say we're not going to rehear the appeal? I'm sorry, I'm not being...
No, but I think the point is we know what information is going to be given to us. There's no new information.
Yes.
So to spend, however much time listening to the same information being discussed, when we already have a decision that is put before us.
I'm comfortable with that as long as procedurally that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
My
all.
understanding when talking to Bart about that is that it's okay.
Okay. That's all I want to know.
I have a question. Did you say Ms. Panico has not paid any impact fees yet?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm reading from the ordinance. Section 1.2.10, refund of fees paid. The owner of record of property for which an impact fee has been paid shall be entitled to a refund of that fee plus accrued interest where, then they give specifications. The impact fee has not been encumbered or legally bound to be paid within 6 years. The town has failed within the period of time to appropriate the non-impact fee share for related capital improvement costs. So she hasn't paid anything yet. She's appealing the calculation of the impact fee, I guess, the methodology of it. But in denying the appeal, she isn't harmed, she isn't out anything yet. So I guess maybe to your question, if it turns out that she brought up a point And now we agree with her in certain of the fees, not all, but certain of the ones will be changed in how they're calculated. They'll send her a bill. She'll pay it. If she'll pay the reduced one, if you recalculate according to her, she may still disagree with other portions of it. I guess in order for her to challenge it, she's got to pay first. And then if she turns out to be right, she wins, she gets refund with interest. Is that how it works?
I believe so.
I mean, that's kind of typical, you know, with taxes, you pay and then you.
You gotta pay first.
You pay first and then you appeal.
Yeah, because actually you have to do the act first before you can change the act.
So, I'm not sure whether we give her the appeal or not, or rehear it or not, I don't think she's harmed because she hasn't, paid yet. At least from a financial point of view, she's not harmed yet.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we deny the rehearing.
Second.
We have a motion of to deny the rehearing. I have a second, and the reason that there's no new information that has been presented.
Correct.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Abstentions, chair votes affirmative, and the rehearing is denied. Okay, we get other business.
Impact fee discussion.
Impact fee discussion.
Okay,
Andre, you have the floor on this.
Is that gonna come back up?
Yes. I'm working on it.
Does everybody have this on their screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I'll move forward until time. If the board remembers, there you go. Back in January, I presented a timeline for which we'll have discussions on the Route 28 corridor and then subsequently in March, the Route 102 corridor impact fee, taking into consideration the input we received from legal counsel with regard to state roads, roadway segments being removed from traffic impact programs. And this is somewhat of a change of course because obviously in 1994, when Londonderry adopted its impact fee program, I'm only assuming that the advice of the Labor Council at the time was that these were legal, and planning board obviously in the town moved forward with that. And since that time, obviously there's been a change in direction with regard to that. Therefore, we're relooking at the corridors to remove those sections of the impact fee that are wholly within the state right-of-way, or are wholly state-owned. But keeping in the program those local roadways intersecting with state highways. If you remember, about this time last year, we were going through updating the Route 28 corridor plan because we had a traffic study that was done by Stantec at the time on Route 102 from the I-93, exit 5, I-93, all the way to Page Road. And so we took advantage of that information and re-looked at our impact fee program. If you go to the next one, the map. The development areas, although it doesn't show up very good up there, were identified within that program of areas that within the next 10 or 20 years will be developed in accordance with the zone in which they're in. And on the next and this is just some of the exceptions that we used. Again, it's based on a base year of 2011. Development areas were consistent with the existing zoning, and we used what the highest and best use would be, and predicated some of the traffic off that highest and best use. And then the floor area, commercial industrial, had 15% of the development area was put into the formula. Residential parcels, 1 unit per acre of developable area, with 25% bonus for parcels suited for workforce housing, because that is an addition that we've added within the last year, was factored in, which wasn't factored into the old impact fee program, but we factored into this one. And then the IT generation we use to the future development as well. And background growth of 1%, which typically used in this area. The next one. The pie chart was there to show that the white and the blue indicates what's existing and what is background growth with regard to the trips that are on the corridor, and that represents about 61% of the trips out there. The red is what is attributed to future development, future volumes. You go to the next one. And the breakout is this, using $2012, if you remember back last year, we had broken out a matrix showing the start year being 2010, or the initial year being 2010, and then we escalated those funds by 3.5%, using a 3.5% escalation factor. So 2012, if we were to take out the roadway segment trips and recalculate based on just the intersection improvements, we'll come up to $10.7 million using 2012 figures. Again, the breakdown is 61% town, state, and 39% would be from the new development. An average of 20 trips per year from outside the corridor will be included. On average, last year when Tim and I looked at this, we realized the majority of the trips will come from within this development area, but we do have some trips that come from outside the area, which we factors in. On our average is about 20 trips per year. And again, that's cost escalation of 3.5% was used. And again, all these figures and all this data that was initially, this whole program was initially done by Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. And what we did is that since we had updated information from Stantec that was done fairly recently, that we used that, plugged it into the formula, had it rechecked by Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission to make sure that the formulas still worked the way they were initially done, and also Stantec to make sure that that we took all the development potential into consideration and the background growth, what's on the roadway now, consistent with the report they had done in order to come up with these figures. So we feel confident that is built upon solid ground. Next one. So you probably want to look at your handout. This next chart gets into the old formula that took into consideration major intersections between Page Road and I-93 and major roadway segments between the same area, and broke down the cost for the improvements on those particular areas, which resulted in last year's fee that was calculated to be the initial cost, and I'm using the $2010 number is $19,900,800 if we were to include intersection as well as the roadway segments along that area.
That's the potential that we could have collected?
Correct. Actually, that's the that's the cost of the improvements. If all those improvements were to take place, the intersection and roadway segment improvement, the intersection meaning that maybe a light is warranted and turning movement, turning lanes and so on and so forth are needed, as well as the roadway segments, to go from a 2-lane, 3-lane highway to a 5-lane highway, would be warranted on those roadway segments, and the total amount would be $19,900.
Okay.
And that's escalated by 3.5% all the way through 2015. If you go to the next one, again, that's been recalculated, taking out the roadway segments and just focusing just on the intersections with local roads. And also, there's just what's been removed from the intersection formula is the intersection on 128 and 28, because that's wholly owned by the state. It doesn't intersect with the town road. So, so those are the intersections that were left. And that's Rockingham, Page, Sanborn, Old Mammoth, which is actually Mammoth Road. But I think, as in locally, we call it Old Mammoth Road. And Clark and Noyes Road, Clark being on the northern side, Noyes Road being on the southern side of Route 28, Sims and Vista Ridge, again, Sims being on the north side of the road, Vista Ridge being on the south side of Route 28, and then Perkins. And so those are the intersections that were included, recalculated to be, using 2010 dollars again, 10,045,000, escalating that up to 2012, that's where you get the 10.7 figure. If you go to the next one. And so based on the 10.7 figure, again, 61% being background growth, or the public share, that's $6.5 million. Developer share, based on 39% of the trips, will be $4.1 million. New trips, if you take all the development areas that we identified on the map earlier, and boil those down to the new trips, both for residential and residential growth, comes up to 3,962 potential trips, new trips added to the corridor. And you divide that by the developer share of the cost for improvements along there, you come with a figure of $1,059. If the board remembers, based on the $19.9 million figure, that per trip cost was $1,900, just shy, about $2 shy of $2,000. And so obviously, by removing those roadway segments, it significantly reduces the impact fee.
I have a question.
Charles got a question.
The $1,059.
Yes.
What does that apply to? Is that like per acre or?
Per trip, per PM peak hour trip. So if you generate 5 trips, it'll be five new PM peak hour trips. And the reason why we use PM peak hour, because that's the worst time that has the most effect, and typically a traffic engineer will predicate his improvement on the PM peak hour trip.
But I get my question is the developer share, $4 million.
Correct.
On this project. Which project is this, by the way?
No, this is the entirety.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the entirety. And so out of the $10 million worth in improvement, so if all the intersections were improved along in between Page and Perkins Road, the resulting cost would be $10.7 million. Of that $10.7 million, $4.1 million is the developer share, and the remainder is the municipal share. However, we get that.
Okay. So if we could go back to the prior slide for a second.
Okay.
If we were only looking at a development that was affected by Page, the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying it's, what was the developer share? 39% of that? If he was doing some project there, he'd have to pay 39% of $1.65 million?
If he were to generate 3,962 trips, yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out how we, what percentage.
Yeah, but the 1,000, if you go back, the 1,059 is, it's the impact fee if you were to generate a new PM peak hour trip within that development area. That's the PM peak hour cost that would be attributed to that particular development. So wherever that lies within, if development area 1 were developed, and that's off of Sims Drive, and they have a 10-trip impact on the corridor, then it would be 10 times $1,059 that would pay towards the impact fee for that corridor.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So,
It's figured for that whole court.
The whole corridor,
Andre,
yeah.
I don't understand why the roadway segments were taken out, because those roadway segments are town roads, aren't they?
No, those are all state segments. We've heard both sides of the argument, and believe me, there's been some pretty good discussion, because one could say that the roadway segments, if the roadway segments are congested, then people in Londonderry will have a tough time getting to their road. Therefore, it should be improved. But our legal counsel has felt to stay consistent with state law, we should remove those. And it doesn't mean that they don't get approved. It just means it won't be part of our impact fee program. So if a sizable development, our development comes, and typically when we have a project that will impact a state road, we have the state at the table with regard to the traffic analysis, the pre-meeting for the traffic analysis. And they'll go through and they'll work with us with regard to what they want to see for analysis. So based on that analysis, if they have a sizable impact on a state highway, the state's going to just say, you know what, this needs to be widened another lane. You need to have a turn lane or whatever. or something added to the roadway segment. If that's the case, then that's just an offsite improvement that will need to be done for that development, as opposed to getting an impact fee that will be collected with other impact fees that will go to the ultimate improvement of that. If that's warranted, then that would just need to be done. It would be part of the offsite improvement for that particular plan.
You hear something, Maria?
No, I'm
Okay,
trying to follow.
okay.
Just, if I can,
Tom?
so, just going back to that example again, if
Yep.
a developer builds a subdivision, and it generates, that subdivision generates 100 trips down Rockingham at Page Road, or
Yep.
any of those,
Any of those.
per day, 100 trips per day, so he'd have to pay
it's a-
or whatever your period of time is, he'd
Yeah.
have to pay a $105,000 fee?
Correct.
Okay.
And the one thing that the town does have jurisdiction over is that if, as a result of the project, that if they're generating 100 trips and DOT says, boy, you gotta improve the roadway here, and that improvement is consistent with our plan, and say that improvement cost, $105,000, then the board can credit their impact fee against the improvements that were made.
And
As long
that's
as it's-
common practice, isn't it?
It can, yes, I mean, I know the board has done it, or the council has done it in the past, example would be Harvey, not Harvey, but Home Depot. They did a lot of work on Route 102, and that work was, some of that work was credited.
Didn't Elliott as well?
Elliott,
I don't think so.
I don't
I
think
thought
so.
they
I don't
did
think they
stuff
did
on-
anything.
They did, but again, it wasn't consistent with.
Intersection.
That
Corridor
was
study.
Yeah,
at the
that's right.
intersection, I thought.
Yeah, yeah, that was state.
So, and the same thing with Hannaford Brothers, they did some work at the intersection of Route 102 and Hampton Drive. Therefore, the cost of that work was credited against their impact fee.
And this impact fee, when it's collected, is not put into the general fund, it's put in a separate account.
It's a segregated account since, and the town has been doing that since the onset of impact fees.
And it has to be
Legally.
spent in 6 years, excuse me. It has to be spent in 6 years.
It has to be spent or obligated.
Oh,
within
okay.
6 years.
Yeah, so if it's encumbered, then it,
Yeah.
it's,
So if you were to go on to the 11th slide, again, that would be the impact fee. New fee schedule would be starting at $1,059 and escalated by 3.5% up until 2017. As you can see, the old fee system would included the roadway segments, would have resulted in the fees that you see before you there. And going on to the last one, again, any questions in the next, at the March meeting, we'll examine the Route 102 corridor, and I intend to bring some good, some information there that I think the board needs to consider with regard to the Route 102 corridor. The Route 102 corridor is a little bit more complex, and what makes it complex is that we had some good information by which we used to update the Route 28 corridor. We don't have that information for the Route 102 corridor, so it's going to be a little bit more complex, and there's several issues that I do want to discuss with the board with regard to that. So that is something that I'll save for the March meeting, but that is coming up. It'll stay on schedule.
So when we make a recommendation to the town council to adapt these impact fees, we're gonna do them both together at the same time?
Yeah,
That's your
what I can
recommendation?
do, I guess that's another question I have the board. What I can do is that I can have the Route 28 ready to go on the March 14th meeting. And so at least we can initiate that, and then have our discussion on Route 102 as to, similar to this one, to figure out where we want to go in that. If everybody's comfortable with that, then it would be the second meeting in April, which we'll have the public hearing for that one.
So we could possibly have a public hearing on Route 28, the second meeting in March.
Correct.
Okay. That would be my preference.
Maria?
I do have one question. How do you figure out the per trip cost again? Is that square footage of the, I'm sorry. No, that's okay. The cost per car trip? How do you figure that again?
If you go back to slide 9, I believe it
So we all that.
is. Actually, slide 10.
Okay,
Actually,
sorry.
the per trip, yeah, it's all based on this. One, the breakdown of cost, the total cost is 10.7 million. And based on the, what is attributed to the existing trips and what's attributed to new trips, you have that 61-39 split, 39% new, for new development, 61% what's on there. Now, you take that 4.1 and divide it by, you divide it by that, the total new PM peak hour trips based on all the development areas and what, what their, the highest and best use for them are in there, based on the ITE trip generation and all that. It gives you a total new number of trips, total trips, and then you apportion that down to the PM peak hour trips. And so you take that 3962 figure into that 41, you get that 1,059 per trip cost.
I get it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
All right, well, I'll bring this back on.
No, this is not a
Public hearing?
It's not a
Okay.
public hearing or anything. Any other business? So, we'll take this up at a public hearing on the 14th, and then, also discuss 102, and then, we'll have a public hearing on 102 in April. All right? Yep,
Motion
that's
to
it.
adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mary to adjourn, second by Rick. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.